The NFL Combine has passed. On this episode of the Chris Rennie Show, episode 12, we talk about the NFL Combine, LeBron James's daily battle with Father Time. Tom Brady is in the news for all the wrong reasons if you're asking a Patriots fan. We're going to see if he's going to be leaving or not. March Madness is getting close. And I talk about the fastest growing league in the United States. All on episode 12 of the Chris Rennie Show. As always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Rennie CFB. And do not forget to follow the podcast page on Twitter at Chris Rennie Show. Thanks for coming and enjoy the show. I can't do this anymore. What's this guy saying? Who gave these national radio hosts these jobs? Jeez. Can't even understand that guy. What's he even talking about? I can't take it anymore. Those national media personalities making you feel like that. Make a change. Listen to this idiot about the sports that matter from the opinion that matters. Haha, you said it, not me. Now for today's takes from the most opinionated host in sports talk. It's the Chris Rennie Show. And yes, I'm still tired of these national hosts who gave those people jobs. Honestly, though, I'm still very much a free agent in the media market. So if you're listening to this, don't think I've stopped applying. I'm still looking. But to get this show started on a serious note, it's your favorite host, Christopher Rennie. We are back. This is episode 12 of the Chris Rennie Show, TCRS. This past weekend, a sport entered its 25th season, a sports league, not a sport. But 25 years, and when you look at the history of this league, it is one of the fastest growing leagues in the world. The popularity is growing every single year. I remember when I first learned about Major League Soccer and finding out that it was actually one of the smallest leagues in the world, I was kind of hurt. I said, I like soccer. Why aren't the Americans very serious about this sport? And now the league is up to 26 teams. You know, when you look at how far this league has come in the 25 years since it started, it's been sensational. And there's been other pro leagues in the soccer realm in the United States. You had the North American Soccer League with the New York Cosmos, who are now the New York Red Bull, and so on and so forth. So, you know, this league started with 26 teams. It started with 8 teams, and now it is up to 26. Over 2.5 decades, these teams have established themselves, and the expansion franchises have actually created demand in markets that the MLS never sought at the beginning because they didn't believe there was going to be enough soccer fandom. Now you can't turn on an Atlanta United game without them almost selling out the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. In Georgia, people didn't think there was going to be that much excitement surrounding a soccer team. But when they came to Atlanta and hired Frank DeBoer, they started winning. And his total football approach that he learned from Ajax has translated very well. And you know, you look at the classic teams, the LA Galaxy, they added Zlatan and got right back into the news when LAFC was sort of taking over the Los Angeles footprint. But now you start seeing some bigger names approaching the league, like I mentioned, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. You had Chicharito come over from Europe to play for the Los Angeles Galaxy. So, yes, realistically, when you look at where the MLS was 25 years ago, you were not going to get a name like Javier Hernandez and Chicharito. You were not going to be able to get a guy like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, even as a retirement league. It just wasn't something that was going to happen. So at the beginning, it wasn't always a pretty league. The MLS struggled early, but with the original 8 teams, they really stuck it out. You had owners like Stan Kroenke. You had owners like Robert Kraft with the New England Revolution. And then Red Bulls purchased the New York Metro Stars in 2005. So it's been a wild ride for them. At the end of the day, these teams have continued to grow. And the league is getting further and further along, and they're adding more expansion teams. And they're going to be at 30 teams by 2022, with teams being added in Austin, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, Sacramento, California, and St. Louis. All different sports towns, So when you look around and you look at the teams in the league, some of them are in very large sports towns, and some of them do not have premier Big 5 sports leagues teams. Some have a few, some have a lot. Atlanta's got major college football. They have NFL teams, Major League Baseball teams, but there's no hockey in Atlanta. So there's always an opening in the markets, and that's what expansion leagues always try to find. And they also try to find places that would be open to a new idea of sport. But when you look at what the MLS is currently and what it can become, that's the question. Now you're getting high-powered owners like David Beckham. American soccer is it's the fastest growing sport in the United States. Young people love soccer. The Cruise demographic in fans is one of the youngest in all of Ohio sports. They love it. And baseball fans are getting older and older. And baseball, as much as I love it, continues to lose popularity. Why? I don't know. To me, I love baseball, but from the complaints I've heard, it's because the action just moves. Pitchers are getting really good. It's hard. You're going to get those. It's either a home run or a strikeout. That's what I hear. That's what I'm hearing. Soccer, when you watch the best in the world play that sport, it truly is a beautiful game. And as the MLS gets better, they're getting more secure and they're getting more profitable. And these soccer-specific stadiums are big because they sell out and they're not ever going to have empty stands. Like when you look at FC Dallas' stadium in Frisco and the Columbus Crew are getting a new soccer-specific stadium, it's really important that's like big money investments into these teams. And sharing a stadium is great. You save on costs, but when you can sell out your own stadium, that shows stability. And, so recently CONCACAF, the North American Soccer Federation, added a Champions League. And that is something that I was waiting for. It's something I said needed to be more apparent in the American culture. So in 1962, the CONCACAF created a Champions League. And now the United States take place in it, and they're being real competitive. LAFC is having its best year in it. So that is what it's all about. Club America is still the superior team. So how can the MLS keep growing? the biggest fans of soccer in the United States are the Hispanic demographic, which means that soccer is absolutely thriving in areas like Los Angeles, in areas in Texas, in areas with large Hispanic populations. The other individuals who love soccer are people who are first-generation European families, first-generation British Americans, first-generation Spanish Americans, first-generation German Americans. Those people still have connections to their former teams. So getting them to not only enjoy watching FC Bayern Munich or watching Manchester United, but enjoying the local clubs is going to be a significant aspect of getting that. And that's why LA Galaxy signing a player like Chicharito is so important, because that's going to drive the Mexican fans to Galaxy games at Dignity Health Sports Park. And it's going to continue to get eyes to the television. When you add a guy like Carlos Vela from Spain, who's still in his athletic prime relatively, that's exciting. Like a guy like Josef Martinez is a guy who could have been playing in a lower level team in Europe, but he's playing at a high level prior to his injury in the United States. Winning those types of players and keeping them in the United States is extremely important. And you look at what they have done. They've tried to mix what makes soccer great and what makes the United States sports great. With soccer, there's cups, there is a regular season, so the Premier League and all other notable soccer leagues play a league table style of format for who is the champion. So it's round robin, everyone plays twice, one home game, one away game. And in the Premier League, you play all 19 other Premier League teams twice. And the team who wins the most, wins are 3 points, draws are 1 point, losses are 0 points. The team who wins the most and has the most points at the end of the season is the champion. But in England, they also have the FA Cup, the English Football League Cup, and they play in the UEFA Champions League, the UEFA Europa League, and other preseason competitions. So the difference is the MLS had to take on a different approach because of the love for football in the United States, American football, to all my soccer listeners. And that has sort of created a necessity for more sports in the summer. And look at where the MLS is starting. The first game was on Leap Day. March 1st was a big day for soccer as well. And that is where it starts. So how can the MLS continue to grow? Well, it's getting names, whether it's through ownership groups, whether it's through the NY City Football Club, getting Manchester City players, whether it's, looking at some of this young American talent and getting it back. Because Christian Pulisic is in Europe right now because European soccer is better. Straight up. We all know that. But making sure Christian Pulisic finishes his career in the United States is vital to the MLS continuing to grow. Making sure when a star like David Beckham is on the last legs of his career, he needs to be playing in the United States. And you want to know why soccer stars love playing in the United States? It's because the United States is a great country with infrastructure, and they don't have the taxes like Spain. They don't have the taxes like Italy that you're just getting robbed with. England, everyone gets paid, but it's an extremely competitive league. When you're Frank Lampard, you can come and you can be the best player for a couple games, retire, make a good chunk of coin. When you're David Villa, you can still be a star for another 4 to 5 years. You just add that to your career that you used to not be able to. And yes, that gives the MLS this sort of retirement league reputation. But where the MLS can continue to grow is in youth development. And that's where the United States struggles compared to some of the better soccer countries. Now with the U.S. Soccer Federation, they have definitely increased the development and the money they put into young players and youth soccer, which is the first step. But when you know any great soccer team and any great soccer club has great youth development built into it. The first instance of this that I ever witnessed in the United States is with Real Salt Lake. A friend of mine from elementary school signed with the Real Monarchs, got developed, was a homegrown player, played in the MLS, and is now a player in Liga MX, which is the Mexican professional league. So there is a lot of development going on for some teams. And that's an example. He is a player who was developed in a youth program like one similar to that in Europe. FC Dallas is one of the pioneers to youth, to a whole engaged youth program. The FC Dallas Juniors is a philosophy that follows what they're doing in Europe. You're playing the same brand of football from the time you were 8 years old and welcomed into the club until you're a homegrown player ready to be a starter for the FC Dallas team. And that's the next place the MLS needs to grow, is in youth development and soccer development. And you want to know the best part about this? Youth soccer is absolutely on the rise. It is the fastest growing sport among youth. It is allegedly safer than football. It is really good for kids, but it's another aspect that the best players are getting taken to Europe. So maintaining this and establishing the continuity of youth to pro and getting these players that are great like Christian Pulisic back into the States and maintaining this common occurrence of getting these older stars coming in like David Beckham, like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, to continue growing the brand. So when you look at the league rankings in the world, when you look at those rankings, this is from globalfootballrankings.com. They specialize in making these ranks and averaging these soccer player indexes, and the Major League Soccer is 20th behind a ton of leagues. And our best team isn't near, obviously, a Manchester City. But it is a team whose low isn't as low as you think. So there is a lot of potential. And 25 years from now, and that's where this question was posed, the MLS in 25 years will be rivaling the third and fourth most popular sports, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NHL in popularity. And that's a bold prediction, absolutely. But the NHL is a sport that continues to decline in interest. It's up and down. There is a niche following for the NHL, and Major League Baseball continues to lose ratings, not in local markets, but nationally. It's losing that national interest. So what's that mean? There's going to be a sport that's taking its place, and you see the ratings in the MLS slightly going up and slightly increasing, and that's the beauty of what the MLS has done, is they've taken their time to build this up. And that's important. And that's why the MLS next 25 years is going to be more successful. You already see it in the game today with that El Tráfico, with the LA Galaxy and LAFC, when Carlos Vela and Zlatan Ibrahimovic were going right back and forth at each other. So I'm excited to see it. I don't know. I mean, I like all sports. That's why I'm talking about the MLS on this show today. But I mean, I don't want baseball to die. I don't want the NHL to die. I like them both. It's just a prediction that I've been seeing thrown around in the news. I wanted to touch on some of the reasons the MLS has been cool to watch and why it's been really successful over its first 25 years, and why at 50 years old this league will be part of the fabric of American culture. I swear to God, it continues to grow. It gets more and more respect from soccer fans year in and year out. It's not just a retirement league anymore. There is competitive soccer, and that is what makes a difference. And you see it with their impressions on social media. You see it with the growth of clubs like LAFC, Atlanta United. You see it with the Crew, the following they had. The Crew were about to leave Columbus, Ohio, and the fans revolted. And now they're getting a stadium downtown because it is growing. And people care about it. And it's become such a nice local aspect. And that's sort of where soccer and college sports are alike. You are going to support the team that you grew up watching because they're new. And this is where it starts. And the community is where a club grows. And that is what I wanted to open the show up with today. This is, as always, the Chris Rennie Show. And now we're going to get into some more normal conversations on this show. I've got only a few more things to cover. We've got the NFL Combine, LeBron James, and March Madness. Just some news on that front. So the NFL Combine happened, and there was a lot of takeaways from it by professionals, and these new mock drafts, not much has changed. So when you look at the risers and fallers, when you look at the people who continue to show out its players, this was a huge combine for wide receivers because there's a lot of talented receivers, so it's getting real nitpicky with these guys. So realistically, what were some of the surprises? When you look at the wide receivers, it was going to be a group that sort of showed out. Obviously, no one was ready for Henry Ruggs to show out like he did, but other guys showed out as well. Like Justin Jefferson ran a 4.4, which showed that his speed on film didn't lie. He was a really good athlete. He jumped well. And it showed that his 111 receptions for 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns were legitimate. I think he's going to be a really good receiver. And other receivers. Michael Pittman's one of the guys I was really excited to watch last football season. He's been really awesome to watch the last 3 years. And he showed out well in agility drills. Did really good on the 20-yard shuttle. Had a solid 40 at 4.52 for his size. Will continue to be a big, strong route runner and a big, strong receiver who wins those physical battles. A lot of people were saying Jalen Hurts killed it in meetings, which I don't think surprises anybody. We'll find out a lot more about him throwing at his pro day. He needs to continue to develop there, but his footwork has always been the issue. He gets lazy, and then balls start to float. Jonathan Taylor ran a 4.39, so his speed is legitimate. He is also a guy who has shown the ability to be... Obviously, his production in college speaks for itself. A guy whose production wasn't what it was expected to be was Cam Akers. Showed out really well. But the two guys who were the freakiest of the athletes. Number one, Mekhi Becton from Louisville. This guy is 364 pounds. That's what he weighed in. He is 6 feet 7 inches tall. He ran a 5.1 40-yard dash at 364 pounds. So right now I'm weighing about 235. My fastest 40 time ever was 4.61. I was 175 pounds and I dropped 5 pounds to try to run it faster. This man outweighs me by 130 pounds and has 7 inches on me. Would smoke me in a race right now. It might be close, but I don't want to risk that, And then Tristan Wirfs. This guy was awesome. This is who I want the Browns to take. He's a tackle prospect. He had a 4.85 40-yard dash, a 36.5-inch vertical jump, and he broad jumped 10 feet 1 inches. Now, my longest broad jump, I'm not proud of that, so we're not even going to bring that up. But Tristan Wirfs is a prospect. I don't usually get excited about offensive linemen. I mean, I give them credit when it's due. But I played wide receiver. I played defensive back. So those are the guys I usually when I'm watching games, when I'm watching film, I guess in ways, just rewatching games would be the best way to put it because I don't have it clipped up like film. So when I'm doing that, my eye always tends to go to wide receivers. It always tends to go to corners. It always tends to go, and that's the same with the combine. I'm not a guy who's like, I'm going to go turn on the NFL combine when the offensive linemen are running. I'm like, why do I care about offensive linemen running? But the story that came out with Tristan Wirfs was the fact he was not a guy who specialized in high school. Tristan Wirfs played multiple sports, and that's why people were making this. And this was an interesting conversation I kept seeing on Twitter. I know for years people have said that it's bad for athletes to specialize in sports, and this is an example. Tristan Wirfs is like a 4-sport athlete in high school, if I remember right. In Iowa, he was, here it is. He won a state wrestling title and won the discus for 3 straight years and shot put for 2nd straight year. So he played football, he was a wrestler, and he did 2 track events at an extremely high level. And the amount of body control you need to throw a discus well, and the amount of body control you need to be a state champion shot putter really translates to footwork and being technical as an offensive lineman. So that was one of the interesting conversations I saw, and it translated. Like, he was a really good athlete. He was very fluid. He was very smooth. And those 2 guys were really impressive at their size, and I think they really solidified themselves as top 15 picks in the draft. Now, Isaiah Simmons might be the best player in the draft. Does he have a position? No. Does that matter? Absolutely not. I'm echoing what almost every single draft analyst is saying because it's true. And when you rewatch Isaiah Simmons' highlights, the dude is absolutely electric and explosive. Another example of why specializing is bad, because this guy was a all-track 200-meter sprinter. He won the state championship in Kansas for long jumping, and he was the 3rd best recruit there. Clemson found this gem, and they utilized him. And, that's one thing you got to give Clemson a lot of credit for. A lot of people would have pigeonholed Isaiah Simmons, who played receiver, defensive back, and linebacker in high school, as one of those 3 positions. They would have either made him lose some weight and play that. But no, they said, you know what, Isaiah Simmons, we're going to get the most out of your physical abilities. We're going to build your muscles up. We're going to get you to around 230, 235. And we're going to try to keep you as fast and as mobile as possible because you are a versatile defender. This is what Clemson did. And now Isaiah Simmons was a guy who played 5 positions on the defensive side of the ball. He's a legitimate pass rushing threat. He can cover your best receiver on occasion, and he is very, very assertive in the run game. And all that translated to what he did in the combine. And that's why Isaiah Simmons, to me, is the 2nd best draft prospect. It goes Chase Young, Isaiah Simmons, Jeffrey Okudah, and those are the 3 best draft prospects. And they're 3 guys you're not going to miss on. They're going to make a difference if they stay healthy in the NFL. Period. Now you've got a really big conversation topic I saw on Twitter was Jeffrey Okudah's 40 time. He ran a 4.49 and a 4.50. And I think his official 40 time on the 4.50 ended up being a 4.51. So when you look at corners historically, Darrelle Revis was a guy who ran a 4.3. But that's not who I'd compare Jeffrey Okudah to. When you look at Jeffrey Okudah's measurables, he was built to play the corner position. When he was going through position drills, he excelled in almost every single aspect when it came to backpedaling, getting ins and outs and breaks, all that fun stuff. And he measured in at 6'1 1/8, 205 pounds, with a 32-inch arm and a 78-inch wingspan. 4.48 was his best unofficial time. He had a 41-inch vertical and a 135-inch broad jump. So as an athlete, he was freaky still. His 40 time just did not show out as much as he wanted it to, and I think his 40 time at his pro day will be better. And yes, Ohio State laser times at their pro day. So we're going to know a real 40-yard dash time. But yeah, so when you look at a guy, and I compared him to him on Twitter, he was a great corner in the NFL. He played for quite a few teams, made a lot of plays in the NFL, and he was one of my favorites to watch. So Antonio Cromartie was 6'2", 210 pounds. About the same size as Jeffrey Okudah. And when you look at his 40 time, it was about the same as Jeffrey Okudah. So I think the best pro comparison for Jeffrey Okudah is Antonio Cromartie. 4.47, 4.48. That 100th of a second's like just the way you take your last step, honestly. So Antonio Cromartie came out of Florida State and had a really long, effective career because his greatest skill wasn't his speed. It was his technical ability and press man coverage and his ability to make plays with his length and reach and athletic ability outside of his sprint speed. And don't get me wrong, 4.48 and 4.47, that's flying. They are fast athletes. But when you see those guys, once those really fast guys lose their speed, they're cooked because they don't rely on the fundamentals the same as a guy like Antonio Cromartie or Jeffrey Okudah do. And that's why when you look into the NFL Combine, 40 times are important. Yes, absolutely. They're fun to watch. Everyone likes to talk about them. What Henry Ruggs did was extremely impressive. What Isaiah Simmons did was extremely impressive. But there are also important things that other people watch. And to me, the Combine is losing a lot to me. I think film is getting there's so much film available on the best players in the draft, and there's so much film available on even those guys who are graded as 4th or 5th round picks that you sort of know what you're getting before you get to the Combine. So it's just sort of a reflection of what you see on film. And I talked about it on my last show before the Combine took place. It's the 90-10 rule. 90% of how you evaluate a prospect is on film. 10% of it is these drills at the Combine. And when you put the 10% to the 90%, you start finding where the 90% is accurate. It either reassures your feelings on the 90% or it makes you take a look again. And that's what this Combine was. It got 10% of my interest over the weekend. I would look at the stuff on Twitter. I knew when the DBs were running, so I'd look to see when Jeff Okudah ran his 40, ran his drills. Watch that. I'd see the names pop up, the Ruggses, the Bardens, the Wirfs, the Simmonses. You know, I'm hearing about the interviews. You hear about that stuff after. Joe Burrow apparently killed it. Yada, yada, yada. But there was not much driving me to the TV to watch the Combine this year. I prefer just looking at the mock drafts after and reading what all the experts in quotation marks have to say. Because realistically, I watch a lot of college football. I'm not an NFL fan exclusively, so I know a lot of these players before they even run a 40-yard dash at an NFL Combine. So it's just one of those things where if you're a college football fan, the NFL Combine just doesn't interest you because you know the good players already. And that's sort of how I felt watching it. Like, an NFL person who only watched the NFL might have just heard of Laviska Shenault this weekend. Me, I've known about him for like the last 2.5 years. So it's just Michael Pittman Jr. on those USC teams, very forgettable teams. I knew about him already. Tristan Wirfs, I remember the talk about him and going up against Chase Young. Like, I knew he was going to be a good offensive tackle. He went to Iowa. They're always good. And then Isaiah Simmons, I mean, if you didn't know who he was, you had your head in a gutter because every Saturday he was doing something impressive. So yeah, one aspect I want to touch on before I move on to the next conversation topic is Tua Tagovailoa to the Redskins. Now, I already said this. The Redskins would be absolutely asinine to not take Chase Young at that number 2 pick and take Tua Tagovailoa because I already did the comparison on Buck Off when I was talking to my Buckeye fans. Dwayne Haskins was a really good quarterback in college. Dwayne Haskins got 3rd in the Heisman voting, right behind Tua Tagovailoa. Dwayne Haskins doesn't have a hip injury issue, and Dwayne Haskins improved throughout the year. Now, I understand a team wanting to get their quarterbacks, but what happens when you draft Tua Tagovailoa and Dwayne Haskins is still the better option? Because that's what would happen. What happens when Dwayne Haskins plays really well this season because Tua Tagovailoa is not ready to play football? What happens when you draft Tua, you get pressured by the fans to play him, he gets hurt, and you're back to Dwayne Haskins square one. Let's cut all that out. Take the best player available, Chase Young. And if Dwayne Haskins doesn't work out this year, then you're going to be bad again. You're going to be in the same spot. You're going to have better quarterbacks to draft. And that's just what it's all about. You're going to have another Ohio State guy in Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. And the 2021 crop of QBs is already better than this one. After Joe Burrow, after Tua Tagovailoa, it's like Justin Herbert, yeah, all right. Jordan Love, yeah, okay. I'm just not excited about these quarterbacks at all. I think really this is the worst quarterback draft in a while. And Joe Burrow did some impressive things at LSU, but even him, it's like, are the Bengals really going to be able to lift it? Yeah, so take the best player. Chase Young's a sure thing. And if you don't take Chase Young, Jeffrey Okudah or Isaiah Simmons will do. But it would be a mistake to take a quarterback in the first round if you're the Redskins. So hearing that report that Ron Rivera, who wasn't even in the meeting apparently, I mean, there's a lot of conflicting reports. And that's one of the biggest issues I have with the Combine, is there are so many conflicting reports about things surrounding different players that you just don't know what's going on. And you just need to cipher through all these other news reports and so on and so forth until you kind of figure out what everyone's going. But that's where the draft gets complicated. There's smoke screens. There's all that. And the last thing I have in my notes was the Combine worth watching. No, it wasn't. I didn't watch a single minute of it live. I followed it on Twitter. That's what I did. I would much rather watch LeBron James play basketball and Ohio State play basketball than watch a bunch of dudes run around cones. And honestly, even agents are tired of the Combine. If you guys didn't see that, NFL agents are starting to think about doing what Chase Young did more if their prospects are rated at a high. Because, there's a lot of opportunities for soft tissue injuries with the wait times between drills and the amount of players that are invited. And they either need to expand this thing to 2 weeks and just invite the player groups at separate times. That would be real tough on the NFL scouts and stuff. It would be a lot better on the athletes. You're already there a while. Just make sure you get the testing done better. You get the 3 days, or the DBs who are like, hey, we need the DBs here for 3 days. Then you get the receivers there for 3 days. You could have multiple groups on different days, but you spread out the groups more. Now the DBs do 2 groups. If you made that 4 groups, the players would be less likely to get injured. And that's the important part. So maybe have 2 combines, NFL Combine 1 and NFL Combine 2. You break the players into groups and all that stuff, and then you sort of fix that issue. The scouts are there longer, but you know what? The scouts aren't resting anyways right now. It'd be good for Indianapolis's economy. So I think that's the way to do it. I really do. All right, so I mentioned his name in my NFL conversation because I always can't seem to get away from the man, LeBron James. I have it in my notes as LeBron James Daily because I just can't stop talking about LeBron. So the Lakers are going to win a championship. When you watch them play the Pelicans, one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now, behind their star rookie Zion Williamson, who is probably next in line for being the face of the league. Zion, this is when I decided this. So I've been pretty supportive of the Lakers the entire season. They were my preseason pick. I do believe in LeBron James more than most. And the moment I decided the Lakers are going to be NBA champions was when LeBron pulled up from half court for a 2-for-1 opportunity and splashed it like it was nobody's business. Just pulled up and knocked it down, and it was like what are you doing, man? And then it was like, oh, wait, you're LeBron James. Obviously, that's what you're doing. So, LeBron, in his 2 games against Zion, he had 41 points in the first one. He had a 35-point triple-double last night, 35, 13, and 10. It was a game. It's that LeBron you've seen the last half decade since he went back to Cleveland, who can just turn it on and just control the tempo of a game, take it over at the end, and just win it by cruising through 3 quarters and then scoring 13 points, getting like 4 assists in the fourth quarter, and just ending the game. So, yeah, I mean, I've got a couple reasons here, and I'm going to talk about the Lakers more than LeBron today. But the number one reason I want to say, LeBron has that gear still. And Anthony Davis has a gear when he flips the switch. And when those two are put together and playing at a level, it's going to be very similar to those games when LeBron and Kyrie Irving both had 40 points. They're going to be unstoppable. And now you say, like, yeah, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, that's exciting. They're good players. Kawhi Leonard could guard LeBron, but then you're going to leave Paul George to guard Anthony Davis? No, that's not going to work. Montrezl Harrell for 4 quarters? No, that's not going to work. Anthony Davis is too good of an outside player to be guarded by someone like that. So that means Kawhi Leonard has to shift to Anthony Davis more than he'd want. And that's going to take that offensive emphasis away. And then LeBron James is going to be guarded by smaller defenders or Paul George, a guy who LeBron has eaten alive multiple times in the playoffs. So there's check 1 on the list. All right, check 2 on the list. Vogel emphasizes team defense. And when you look at the way the roster is constructed for the Lakers, there is a lot of length. And you've got McGee, you've got Howard, and then you've got a ton of defensive versatility with long wing players. Alex Caruso can defend 1 through 4. Anthony Davis can defend like 2 through 5. KCP can guard 2 through 4. 1 through 4, actually. My bad. And Kyle Kuzma is one of those guys who can guard 1 through 4. He's actually a pretty solid defender. So that's depth. They're also thinking about signing J.R. Smith. Bold move, but the guy's an outside shooter. He straps. And when these guys, when KCP's adding, Avery Bradley's a versatile defender. Rajon Rondo, when he is playing well, is very good. So this is a team with playoff experience. It's a team with some championship mettle. And from what I've seen these last couple weeks, they can grind out wins and they can dominate in different ways. So you're led by the best player in the world still. The only team I think compares to them is the Milwaukee Bucks. And their 2 disappeared in the playoffs last year. Mr. Chris Middleton, he disappeared last year. So realistically, who in the West can take down these Lakers? The Clippers are the only team that come to mind, and I really don't see them doing that. Now, Kawhi Leonard's a great basketball player, and Kawhi Leonard's beaten LeBron 1 time in his career in the NBA Finals and came up short the other time. And I think LeBron is playing at an extremely high level, and he's still not reaching his ceiling. I think that's why he's playing as many games as he can. He rested a game. I think the load management's coming a little bit more than everyone thought, but he continues to impress me. Appreciate what he's doing daily because he is tied for the league lead in assists with triple doubles with 13. He is leading the league in assists, and he's averaging like 26 points per game. So he is playing at an absurd clip right now, and you can't take that for granted at this point. And I really do believe that the Lakers are going to be NBA champions. And I will say there are 2 other teams I've been seeing. The Celtics are playing some of the best basketball I've seen a team play without LeBron since the Warriors. They're that good. And so are the Bucks. I think if it's not the Lakers, it's going to be the Bucks or the Celtics. To close out the show, there is some rumors surrounding another GOAT. Tom Brady, Mr. Lots of Super Bowls, 6 of them. This weekend, Tom Brady was seen FaceTiming Mike Vrabel, him and Julian Edelman at the Syracuse-Duke basketball game. So why is this interesting? So Tom Brady has been brought up in conversations with the Tennessee Titans because of that connection to former teammate Mike Vrabel. If the price is right, the Titans are a very well-constructed roster, first and foremost. And that connection to Vrabel, that Patriot way, you can sort of bring in. You're not going to change much about it. You're not going to change much about your planning. He'd still be able to have that level of control he'd want, but with his own stuff, not with the team, obviously. And I think that's big for Tom. I think that's what he needs, and I think that's why it's interesting. But the other team that you keep hearing is the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Gruden doesn't believe in Derek Carr, or else these rumors wouldn't keep coming out. So they're going to be going out and trying to get a quarterback, regardless of if it's Tom Brady or not. And, I didn't think much of the FaceTiming. Like, Mike Vrabel and Tom Brady are friends. That's a legitimate thing. Mike Vrabel and Tom Brady used to do the bet where on the game with Ohio State and Michigan, where Ohio State beat Michigan. Oh, you got to wear Ohio State stuff, Tom, and now that still goes on in the locker room. The Ohio State guys bet the Michigan guys the same thing every year. So most of the time it's the Michigan guys wearing Ohio State stuff. No flex zone. But, yeah, so that led me to start thinking, what would it take for Tom Brady to leave New England? So what are the main things New England has provided Tom Brady over the last 20 years? The first thing is stability. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady have been on the same page for 18 out of the 20 years they've been together. The first one was the Jimmy Garoppolo moment, that instant connection Belichick had to Garoppolo. He wanted to move on. Tom Brady said no. They ended up winning a Super Bowl. The organization's disciplined. A disciplined organization, that's what he'd need to leave. The Patriot way. It's very disciplined. It's very do-your-job oriented. It's very consistent. And then, obviously, a lot of cash is going to be needed to take away Tom Brady from the Patriots. Super Bowl chance. So it's got to be a team with a roster already constructed to win the Super Bowl. And it also has to be a city that is flashy enough or for his wife or family friendly enough for his wife. So that takes out a lot of cities. I don't really see Brady in Vegas working. It just doesn't seem to be his brand. The Raiders are a pretty unstable organization. Now, Gruden does have a long-term contract, but I don't think that's the route they're going to go. I still think Derek Carr ends up being the starting quarterback for the Oakland Raiders come August. So that's where I think that one stands. They're probably going to draft a guy like Jake Fromm in the second round. John Gruden's going to talk him up a lot, and yeah, it's gonna end up being a whole lot of talk for nothing. The Titans are a team that if they bring in Tom Brady, they won't be able to afford Derrick Henry, and they will probably end up drafting a running back in the first round of the draft if that is the case. I see guys like J.K. Dobbins. I see guys like DeAndre Swift. I see guys in that sort of echelon as a possibility to the Tennessee Titans. But realistically, I don't really see them going to the Titans. I think Tom Brady's going to stay. I do think he's going to want money to stay. But I think the only reason he's even thinking about leaving is because he needs some weapons. They need to go out and spend some money and get a top-tier receiver or utilize draft picks to get a better receiver because N'Keal Harry's good, but you don't have Gronkowski walking through that door again. And that's going to be a significant part on if Tom Brady stays or leaves is what they do with the roster. So yeah, I do believe that Tom Brady is going to be a Patriot come fall, but there are some parts of this that could sway him to leave. Will they happen? Probably not. But yeah, lastly, he said he wasn't. He did say that. Julian Edelman repeatedly said he's coming back. He's coming back. Tom Brady said no, he's not, and he looked kind of mad. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll play it out. My predictions he's going to be a Patriot, but it might not be that way. So now let's go to my final topic of the day, and this is how I'm going to say goodbye to you all. March Madness is coming. We are going to do a Mom's Basement Bracket Challenge. TCRS and Buck Off will sponsor it. And there will be some prizes that I'm going to get worked out in the coming weeks before March happens, so I have them ready to go. So start watching college basketball, start getting your brackets ready. March Madness, Obi Toppin, he's a star. Marcus Howard, two guys at smaller schools you're going to have to watch out for in the tournament. Ohio State's going to win the national title this year. This is it. This is the time in my life they finally do it. Don't pick them to be your champion because they're my champion. I already called it. If you pick Duke, you're probably going to get disappointed this year. It's an odd year, or no, it's an even year. They always get messed up in those ones. Man, it's been a crazy year in college basketball. I've been watching a lot lately. It's been a lot of fun, but it's crazy. I mean, Baylor was like 2 weeks ago, Baylor was everyone's pick. All right. Baylor was who everyone had. And then Kansas beat them pretty handedly, pretty soundly. And now no one likes Baylor anymore. So I think if I had to pick my Final Four right now, it's Ohio State, it's Dayton, it's Kansas, and then it's tough. It's tough, it's tough. It's not easy. So it might be Gonzaga. San Diego State was exciting, and they lost. Louisville's playing really good with Jordan and Awara. I really don't see any other. I mean, Michigan State has some veterans, but they sort of struggled pretty much throughout the entire year. Iowa with Luka Garza is a really talented team. When they're shooting the ball, they're one of the best. So it's coming. It's going to be madness. This is the year because there has been more number one teams this year than like any in the last 2 decades. There's going to be drama. There's going to be 13 seeds beating 4s. This is not going to be a year where your bracket's perfect. So we will discuss this more as it gets closer. With March Madness, there is always going to be March Madness special edition shows. So I will be doing one, and it'll probably be a combination that goes up both on the Chris Rennie Show and on Buck Off. So listen to both of them. They'll be the same exact show, but they'll be published to both. And that is what is up with March Madness. As always, thanks for coming and enjoying your time with me. This was a pretty quickly put together show. Hopefully I didn't bore you to death with my soccer talk, but I do really think that's a story that you need to watch the next 25 years. So I'll see you guys in 25 years, and I'll be like, where Chris R. was right. And that is where I'm closing it out. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe and rate the podcast on iTunes and anywhere else you listen to podcasts and can rate it. And I will see you guys Thursday with another episode of the Chris Rennie Show. Unlucky 13. We've got a Friday the 13th this month. So we'll be talking about superstitions. Not this next episode. Maybe on the next episode. But that's it. This is your host, Chris R., signing out. Adios.